Hello everyone and welcome back to Forge Core Gaming. I'm your host Phoenix, and today we're kicking off the first episode of a multi-part series where I use the Aegis Vanguard Warden as my base of operations in a liveaboard challenge series. If you're new to my channel, I periodically do these long-term liveaboard challenges, and I say periodically, this is only my second series in this category, but we are still a relatively new channel. On a related note, since we are a relatively new channel, we would really appreciate it if you hit that like and subscribe button. It's a free way to help the channel, and we love it whenever someone new joins us for our journey throughout the Star Citizen universe. When putting together these liveaboard series, I like to set in place a set of goals that I want to accomplish that might be a little bit outside the box. And I like to pair them with a short set of rules that keeps things interesting and fun. During my last challenge, which was on the Starlancer Max, the challenge was to raise enough money to buy the RSI Scorpius while limiting myself to only one ERT bounty per day. Unfortunately, the release of 4.0 cut that series short, but this time we're seeing it through to the end. For the Vanguard Warden, I wanted to do something especially Pyro themed that wasn't necessarily tied to money or purchasing ships. So this time around, I'm putting in place the rule that I can only upgrade my ship with parts that I find out in the wild, aka I cannot buy anything that improves my ship's performance, and I cannot just go into contested zones to farm components there. Save for one single exception. I'm allowed to purchase and swap out the bespoke guns made especially for the Vanguard series of ships so that my guns maintain the same projectile velocity. That's it. Everything else will have to be sourced from ships I either destroy or find scattered across the Pyro system. This rule, however, is also a big part of the goal, as the target of this series is to fully upgrade and equip my humble Warden completely with top tier components, which might be a struggle since I can't go directly to the source. On top of that, I have to achieve victory in at least one PvP encounter. Plus, I have to complete one of each mission type other than salvage or mining. I'm also allowed to repair only at space stations or outposts. I am to avoid major hubs at all times. I'm also not allowed to use any other ship in the game for any reason whatsoever, which means anything I find has to be carted around the verse in a ship with no cargo grid. The purpose of this challenge series is to explore and expand upon the versatility of the seemingly specialized ship like the Vanguard series of heavy fighters, and at the same time explore more of the Star Citizen universe without a full fleet of ships at my command. There will be challenges, there will be drawbacks, and of course, a bit of shenanigans along the way. That's next. I started off my journey at the edge of Pyro, in a dimly lit hangar in Ruin Station. I just upgraded one of my fleet ships to the Warden so it was available to be delivered right away. This is my first time ever flying a Warden. I've had a bit of experience in the Sentinel and Harbinger versions of the Vanguard, but it has definitely been a while since I've been in either, so I was anxious to get underway. Calling up my ship from the ASOP terminal, I was taken aback by how good this ship looked in the stock paint. I've kind of always been impressed by the look of the Vanguards because their appearance is just so aggressive. They're here to fight. They're here to hit and get hit, and then keep on going. And the default black paint on the Warden just leans into that mean demeanor. To get started, I hopped into the back of the Warden, its only entry point, and made my way to the cockpit. Right off the start, I knew I wanted to find some upgrades to my guns ASAP. So I decided to head directly to Terminus to see if I'd have any luck at finding abandoned ships near Bullock's Reach. Unfortunately, the only thing I found was an onslaught of firepower courtesy of hostile turrets around unfriendly outposts. At this point, it's worth mentioning that I messed up and chose to support the Frontier fighters during the fight for Pyro, so every faction kinda hates me right now. Deciding I should move to a generally more populated planet, I started the quantum jump to Bloom to try my luck. Deciding I should probably refuel my 1.8 SCU of quantum fuel before dropping down planetside, I headed to Obituary and requested a hangar. I gassed up and repaired the damage I took from the enemy turrets and began exiting the hangar when I noticed a ship floating just outside. It was a constellation. Being that I recently adopted the scavenger life, I decided to take a look to see if they, by chance, had taken the time to upgrade their guns. Now, it looked like other players had already done a bit of scavenging, but as luck would have it, one single size 5 attrition remained behind. Which, if you've seen my videos before, you could have guessed is exactly what I was looking for. So I pulled up beside the abandoned Connie, making sure to unlock my ship ports, and started my EVA. I quickly removed my stock Deadbolt 5 and swapped in my newly acquired size 5 attrition. Not wanting to waste a deadbolt, I managed to squeeze the size 5 ballistic cannon into the singular hallway of the Warden, and again requested a hangar so I could A, store the deadbolt, and B, save my new ship loadout by storing and unstoring it. With an early win under my belt, I decided I'd better get some bespoke laser repeaters to match my new main gun, so I set course for the Stanton Gateway. After traversing the jump gate, I started a jump to Area 18 so I could purchase 4 GVSR laser repeaters from Center Mass, one of the 2 ship component stores at Area 18. While I was in town, I also decided to equip the livery I purchased in the online shop. Once kitted up, I decided to try my hand at some bounties Stanton side and queued up a VHRT. Now again, I haven't used a Vanguard in a long time, since before the 4.0 update, so I was curious to see how the new AI would fare against the renowned heavy fighter. My newly equipped weapons made short work of one of the bounty C2s, but I found myself struggling against the Misk Starfarer because no matter what angle I approached it from, it seemed to always have guns pointed at me. Finding myself in a losing battle, I decided to switch targets to the remaining C2 so I could finish the bounty and get out of dodge. Afterwards, I took a quick pit stop to repair at an ArcCorp mining area before heading off to do an HRT on Lyria. The HRT being much easier than the previous bounty, I quickly took out the enemy targets and decided it was high time to get back to Pyro for more scavenging. Once Pyroside, I headed to Monox, another popular planet in the Pyro system, and made my way to Sunset Mesa to see what I could find. Upon arriving, I found a seemingly abandoned Connie, but there was also a player-piloted fighter sitting off in the distance. Not wanting to risk being attacked while salvaging, also not wanting to be the one to initiate a PvP encounter, I made my way to the upper atmosphere and jumped to another POI, Osler's Claim. Almost immediately upon arriving, I received notice that missiles were inbound. I diverted skyward and deployed chaff and flares before entering quantum travel mode and jumping to safety. Not feeling deterred, I set course for a derelict outpost to try my hand at locating loot in NPC encampments. Afterwards, I headed to Last Ditch, where the only ship I found with salvageable components was an Anvil Terrapin Medic. Unfortunately, the only components that would fit my Warden were objective downgrades. So I tossed them off my ship and pressed on. It would seem that my early luck had run out. Skipping around Monox a bit more, I found some size 4 attritions on another abandoned Connie that I decided to bring back for my Starlancer Max. I cached them in Patch City and decided to give Monox another go. Making my way to Arid Reach, I found an abandoned Zeus that had Aspis shield generators, which was a slight upgrade over my stock full stops. Once loaded, I made my way back to Patch City to install them. Now, I tend to avoid certain POIs in Pyro that are known for being PvP hotspots, but I decided it was time to start taking some risks and headed towards Sunset Mesa. Unfortunately, I didn't find anything of value, so I decided it was time to switch planets, so I QT'd to Starlight Service Station so that I could start exploring Bloom. After refueling, I made my way planetside to the Golden Riviera, where several ships appeared to be abandoned, albeit unconfirmed. They were also a little bit too close to the POI for my liking, so I once again jumped to another POI. Upon arriving at Shadowfall, I spotted another player, so I again decided to leave. It was occurring to me at this point that the more popular planets might not be the way to go, and perhaps I should try my luck at some of the other planets positioned further out in the Pyro system. So I set course for Pyro 1, Stag's Rut, someplace I'd never been before. Immediately upon arriving, I saw a F-8C on the ground and decided to see if it had any valuable guns. As it turned out, it had 4 size 3 Ardor repeaters and 2 size 2 Ardor repeaters right for the picking. So I disabled it and loaded the guns up. Once loaded, I climbed out of atmosphere and jumped away from the planet to install the size 2s onto the top turret of my Warden. Then I headed to Starlight Service Station to unload the rest of my haul. Once unloaded, for the sake of being thorough, I returned to Pyro 1, this time to Rustville. Now, these POIs are listed as unaffiliated, so I was unsure as to whether or not their turrets would fire on me. But I saw several ships directly on the POI that appeared abandoned. So I took one turret that was a little closer than I would have liked and started disabling the abandoned ships. I parked between the Starlancer Max and Zeus and got to work. Going into the Starlancer, I knew that several of the components were size 2, so they would fit my ship just fine. Hoping to score big, I made my way to the engineering bay and opened up the component access. And to my surprise, the Starlancer was loaded. It had a pair of LuxCore power plants, plus a pair of Absolute Zero coolers, both contested zone tier components. Working as quickly as I could, I loaded both Starlancer freight elevators and made my way downstairs so I could unload them. Stacking them carefully into the back of my Warden, I debated quitting while I was ahead and getting out before anyone found me. But the world belongs to the brave, and I had a strange feeling that the Zeus held secrets that I needed to uncover. So I climbed into the pilot seat of the Warden and quickly soft-deathed the Zeus so I could gain access. I was really only searching for 2 components, an upgraded quantum drive and some better shields. From back to front, I opened each component compartment to have a look. The quantum drive was a bit of a side grade, so I left it behind and made my way to where the shield generators were stored. And when I opened them, I couldn't believe what I had found. 3 Trenta shield generators, 2 of which I needed, and is the best size 2 shield generator you can get without finding one in contested zones. The only trade-off of which is the component HP. But there was a catch. None of the components would detach from their respective compartments. Thinking maybe the ports were somehow still locked, I got into the pilot seat and tried toggling them to unlocked. Still no luck. No matter how much I tried, the components just wouldn't budge. I only had one other idea on how to liberate the shields that I desperately needed. I returned to the Warden and carefully fired off a few shots at the already damaged Zeus, full killing it and effectively destroying the hull. I knew from experience that there was a good chance that the components would remain behind, but I would be unable to traverse through the ship now that it was destroyed. I returned to the Zeus and positioned myself below the front ladder opening. I began scanning the hull with my tractor beam, hoping that it would reach far enough and go through the hole to grab the coveted shields. To my shock, it worked. Carefully, I was able to coax the shield generators out of the small ladder opening and bring them to my ship. Not willing to risk the haul I had just raked in, I quickly loaded up the Warden and made my way back to Starlight Service Station to install the new components, bringing my day's haul to 2 LuxCore Competition Grade A power plants, 2 Absolute Zero Competition Grade B coolers, 2 Trenta shield generators, 1 size 5 attrition, 2 size 4 attritions, 4 size 3 Ardor repeaters, and 2 size 2 Ardor repeaters, which leaves me just 1 component shy of completely upgrading my Warden. All I need now is a high tier quantum drive. But at this point in the video, I had spent roughly 6 hours in the verse and it was time to call it a day. Now, I hadn't really been keeping track of the credits spent on repairing and refueling, but UEC really isn't the focus of this challenge anyways. So instead of my usual receipts at the end of these challenge series episodes, I figured I'd present to you a stat comparison with my new components. Here they are. And keep in mind, these stats are for the two following power output configurations, the original loadout being on the left and the upgraded loadout being on the right. In its stock configuration, the Vanguard Warden has 2,273 sustained pilot DPS, which isn't necessarily weak, but it doesn't feel befitting of a heavy fighter. With my scavenged gun loadout, the Warden's DPS shifted to 2,965 sustained DPS, which is a substantial boost and definitely moves it towards the heavy hitter side of the heavy fighter spectrum. Moving on to shields, going from the pair of full stops to the pair of Trentas, my Warden shield went from 9,480 bubble HP with a 338 HP per second recharge rate to 12,340 bubble HP with a 501 HP per second recharge rate. Again, another substantial bump to performance. This time, coolers don't really seem to affect much in the game, but the Warden's cooling capacity did go from 26.4 to 62.4, with a maximum power requirement shifting from 8 energy pips down to only 6. On top of that, the addition of the Lux Core power plant took my power generation or output from just 19 pips up to 21 pips, over a 10% increase. Now, one could argue that this is kind of a waste of time. I mean, you could farm the credits out to purchase these or equivalent components in much less time than 6 hours. But personally, I kinda like being resourceful, and I enjoy finding different ways to play the game while we wait for new content to be added. Next episode, we'll be on the hunt for some PvP action while we search for our final missing component, a quantum drive. Make sure you don't miss it by hitting that subscribe button just below the video, and make sure to hit the bell icon so you get notified when I put out another one. Drop a comment and let me know what you think of this series so far, and leave me some ideas as to some additional challenges you want me to add to the series. I'd love to hear from you. But with that, I think I'll end the video. As always, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the verse.